Good morning to all early joiners and welcome to this ninth conference of the AFGB. We will give it a few minutes till 3:30 p.m. Indian time to let more people come in. And even as I speak, I can see people beginning to join in. So bear with us while we let all our invitees come in and then we will make a start. Thank you. Good morning again and welcome to all joiners. The AFGB is honored to have Mrs. Bernali Decker, Deputy Commissioner of Gwalpara. Welcome, ma'am. We are waiting for more invitees to come in and we will make a start on time. Thank you. Good morning to everyone and welcome to this ninth conference of the Assam Forum Great Britain, the AFGB. We have a stellar lineup of invitees today for our conference. Although I have to say we're still waiting for a couple of our guests. So I think I would ask you to bear with us while we will just wait for a couple more minutes to ensure that our guests are in. Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone again. The AFGB is pleased to have Dr. Ramin Talukdar in our midst. Welcome, sir. Good morning to all, and it is AFGB's honor to have with us Mr. Kamakya Prasad Dasa, Member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha of the Indian Parliament. Good morning to you, sir, and welcome to the call. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you. I'm just doing a quick few checks on the system and we shall commence business in under a minute. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. Nilmoni Sikder.
Right, good morning to everyone. And finally, we are kicking off. We are the Assam Forum Great Britain. We are a society of volunteers concerned around the socio-political and economic interests of Assam. We are a United Kingdom-based organization, but we see ourselves as an international forum concerned around issues on Assam. And indeed, today we have people joining in from not only India or the United Kingdom, but from other countries as well, in Europe and in other parts of the world. So hearty welcome to everyone. I just wanted to quickly mention our chief guest is Mr. Kamakya Prasad Dasa. He's a member of parliament of the upper house of Indian Parliament, the Rajya Sabha. Previously, Mr. Dasa was a member of parliament of the Lok Sabha, which is equivalent to the House of Commons in the United Kingdom or the what in many countries we often call the lower house, the more powerful legislative house of parliament. So Mr. Tassa is our chief guest, and we look forward to hearing from him. We also have Mrs. Bornali Dekka, who is the Deputy Commissioner of the Gwalpara district in Western Assam, a beautiful part of the world. And Mrs. Dekka will be talking to us today about development and disaster, the Gwalpara story. We have with us Dr. Romen Talukdar, who we had mentioned as the principal of Lokhimpur Medical College, but we have heard that he's now the principal of the Borpeta Medical College. We congratulate you on your new move, sir. And we know that you will be talking about COVID-19 and public responsibility. We look forward to your talk.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have a presentation of the UK response to COVID-19 by Professor Jayanta Mollaburwa, who is medical expert in the United Kingdom, practices in the United Kingdom, but has strong interests in Assam. I would like to welcome everyone, all the speakers, the chief guest, and of course, all the attendees. Thank you for joining. Just doing a quick check to see, I think there are a few more attendees coming in, and I've just admitted them in. So the order of business is, of course, displayed on one of the screens. That is the agenda. And so, first of all, I would like to hand it over to our president, Dr. Neera Borkakoti. Personally, I call her Neera Auntie. Neera Auntie, I would like to hand it to you to do the honors. If you would please unmute yourself, and we will commence on from there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rick, and thank you everybody for coming in. I will say good morning to people who are in the UK, and maybe good afternoon or whatever it is and time it is in your part of the world.
Okay, tomorrow number on that, let's say. Tomorrow number on that.
I hope you can see my screen.
Okay.
Before we start our meeting today,
Okay.
I think what
okay,
sorry, there's an echo from somewhere.
Yeah, if I may, Auntie. So what I will be doing, if it's all right, is I'm going to mute everyone, and then Neera Auntie, I will ask you to unmute yourself. Just bear with me. Yes, Auntie, whenever you're ready. Yeah, you need to unmute yourself, Auntie.
Okay. Did it, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, ma'am. Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah. Hello, Neera.
Hello. I'm having a problem. Can you hear me now? Anybody?
We can hear you, Aunt.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
Please carry on.
Yeah. So I hope this is not going to happen a lot. These are initial glitches. I hope you can see my screen as well.
Yes, we can.
Can you? You can. Okay. So this is now the official start, let's hope, of the program. And then good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. However, before we start, I think what we will do is to pay a tribute to Sri Torun Gogoi, the former Chief Minister of Assam, who, as you know, died of post-COVID complications on the 23rd of November. He was a veteran leader with rich political and administrative experience, who contributed immensely to Assam political and the public sphere during his long tenure in office. So as a mark of respect, may his soul rest in peace. Can we observe a minute's silence as a mark of respect, please? The minute starts now. Our minute is over. Thank you for joining us in this paying respect to Dr. Gogoi. Welcome to the 9th Assam Forum Conference. This is the first virtual event that we are hosting. I'm delighted to see the wonderful response we had to our call. I'm sure you will appreciate and contribute to the many discussions we hope to have today. As you know, and as Rick has said, the main function of the AFGB is to draw attention of the people and the governments of Assam and India to the serious economical and social problems of Assam, to analyze and discuss these problems in search of solutions and endeavor to be an effective lobbying group. Since our inauguration, I have a list. If you see my slide, I hope this is visible to you. Since our inauguration, we have had many meetings since 2012. The AFGB meetings, as you see on the slide, have been held in academic institutions such as the London School of Economics, University of Loughborough, and the University of Leeds, in order to provide a platform for individuals to voice their concerns, their suggestions, and generate discussions, and above all, make the community aware of the issues and problems of our much loved region in India, which is Assam. As a result of these discussions, the AFGB in the last 5 years have submitted representations on, for instance, the migrant problems to the Chief Minister, Mr. Gogoi, at that time. Also, foreigners' problem in Assam to the Bangladesh government via the Bangladesh High Commissioner in the UK, and also problems of flood, social and economic problems in Assam to the Prime Ministers, Dr. Singh and Mr. Modi was 2 or 3 years ago. Now, the restrictions imposed by the global pandemic this year has prompted us to convene the 9th annual AFGB meeting in this electronic format. It also seemed appropriate to use COVID-19 as the theme of the meeting in order to highlight the impact of this pandemic and the impact that this has had on our lives, and also to learn more about the schemes that have been endorsed for dealing with this crisis, not only in Assam, but across the world. Towards this end, we have put together the morning's program with both social and medical approaches to containing COVID-19. In the next 3 hours or so, internet, electronics, and personal manipulation allowing, of course, the presentations from our speakers will generate food for thought and initiate interesting discussions that we hope that many may be accepted as resolutions that will impact on our common goals to make a constructive contributions toward the people in Assam. I hope that you're ready for the next few minutes. And now I'll let Rick, who's our treasurer, start the program formally. Thank you.
Thank you, Aunt Neera.
Back to you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. So thank you for that introduction. Very informative, of course, and speaks about our organization and the work we do. Without much further ado, I would now like to invite our chief guest, the Honorable MP of Rajya Sabha of Indian Parliament, Mr. Kamakhya Prasad Dasa, to come and say a few words. Thank you. Mr. Dasa, sir, if you would please unmute yourself. We're ready when you are.
The other chap's mic is also not working, the chief guest.
While we're waiting, I can take this opportunity to welcome old friends. It's wonderful to see so many familiar faces. Tom Boyd, Nilima Bhagavati, very nice to see you. You're our participants from our previous meetings. It's also very nice to see Dr. Sikdar, Nilmoni Sikdar, Gita, Borua,
I can't.
familiar
Thanks.
faces.
Can you hear
Thanks,
me?
Nira. Thanks a lot, Nira.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I hope this was the thing that we were most afraid of. Technical
Can you hear
hitches would
me?
prevent us, continuing with the program. But hopefully, this
You
will
are
be
muted
resolved
then.
soon. Oh yes, and Jayanta Borua Moon, nice to see you too.
Can you hear me?
Hi. Hello, Mamanu as well. It's very good to see familiar faces. Thank you for your support.
Can you hear me?
You're muted, Moon. We can't hear you. Couldn't hear you. Oh,
Can
yeah.
you hear me now?
Yeah, that's good. We need to hear you. You're going to give us a talk. Yes, good.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Right. So I'll take this opportunity to say a few things, of course. So in today's deliberation, we will only be taking questions on the chat. This is to ensure a smooth and fair ability for people to post their questions. That also allows people to simultaneously communicate without interrupting each other, because obviously you're all typing. However, the downside to that is, of course, we will try and accommodate as many questions as we can within the time after each speaker finishes. And at the end, time permitting, we will also take a pick of a few more questions and put them to speakers. So that'll be the mode of questions and answers. So we will not be asking questions verbally, but we will be posting them on the chat. And I and Niranti, we will be on the lookout on the chat to see what questions are coming in, and I will be prompting them out to the speaker after each speaker. We will commence, of course, while we try and get Mr. Tasser online. We will commence with Mrs. Varnali Dekkar's presentation. However, before we do that, I just wanted to mention that I'll be once again muting everyone and then requesting the speaker to unmute herself. And I have to just finish doing a quick system check before I say we're about to go. Just bear with me for 15 seconds. Thank you. Right, it is my immense honor to introduce to everyone Mrs. Varnali Dekkar, who's the Deputy Commissioner of the District of Gwalpara. Mrs. Dekkar is a computer engineer by background and also holds an MBA in systems and operations from the IIT Bombay, Mumbai. I apologize. Mrs. Dekkar worked as a software engineer and as a business analyst at ANZ Bank and various financial and fintech organizations. And then went on towards the civil services, initially in the Indian Police Service, and then decided to change her career and then go into the Indian Administrative Service, and is an accomplished IAS officer today, serving in her position at the moment. Additionally, Mrs. Dekkar is also a Visharad, which is equivalent to B Muse in Indian classical music, a marathoner, winner of many state and national awards, including the L.V. Reddy Award, and has numerous accomplishments to her credit. But I will not take much more of your time. I will hand it over to Mrs. Dekkar because I understand she intends to talk about the Gwalpara aspect of development and disaster. So I hand it over to you, ma'am. The mic is yours. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you so much. And I would like to thank Assam Forum Great Britain for this opportunity to present the Gwalpara story on the last few months of the pandemic and various waves of disaster and the developmental process that we've been able to continue in spite of all the disasters. Without further ado, I'd start off my presentation. So is the screen visible now? Is the presentation visible?
Yes, ma'am, I can
Yes.
see your screen.
Okay. So this is development and disaster, the Gwalpara story. As the time is limited, I'll try to rush through. And if there is any query or any kind of observation, we can take it at the end of the presentation. So is the medium of, I mean, am I supposed to speak only in English or is it a combination of English and Assamese?
I would say suit yourself, but primarily in English, I think, because there are people who are non-Assamese speakers. But since you all like Assam, I'm sure they understand a bit of Assamese.
All right. The presentation is completely in English, but I thought in case some Assamese is required. So I'll, for those of you who are aware of the geography of Assam, Gwalpara is a district in Western Assam. We are one of the 112 aspirational districts of India. If one is aware of the aspirational district program of the country that was launched by Honorable Prime Minister, this comprises of districts that have been lagging behind in terms of human development indices. So we are one of the 112 aspirational districts of the country with an area of 1824 square kilometers. Just an overview of the challenges. Immense challenges in terms of the braided Brahmaputra. We have a number of sores. We are disaster prone, and in terms of cyclones in the months of February and March, we have flash floods that happen in the beginning and end of the flood season due to the roll down waters from the Garo Hills of Meghalaya and so on. I'll straight away go to our brush with the pandemic and several waves of floods. We had some of the earliest COVID detections in the state, starting with the first case in the month of March itself, when the Tablighi Jamaat incident happened in Delhi. We had 8 positive persons, attendees who had returned. We have had a total of around 2551 positive cases so far, although the mortality has been low in Gwalpara as well as in the rest of the state, 11 numbers. We were the worst flooded district in terms of percentage of population affected, impact of Amphan in May, and 2 successive waves of floods. I'm going straight to how we were able to handle the pandemic and disaster, because as many of you would be aware, our resources are extremely limited in terms of manpower as well as in terms of material resources. So in India, as you would probably have observed, the election model is the most efficient and efficacious setup, and this is what we did during the pandemic. It was an all hands on deck approach. There was a convergence of resources, of manpower. We had a multidisciplinary centralized core team which we had handpicked officers. Some of the officers that I knew could handle stress and could act well in an emergency. Team, which was the core of the entire exercise, and we had flying squads, which were the action wings of this centralized handpicked team. Preparedness was key, and Gwalpara, along with the state of Assam, was extremely well prepared, and I would say that our COVID response has been one of the best in the entire country. Along with the pandemic, along with the medical response, as the Deputy Commissioner, as district administration, one of our key mandates is to ensure handling of essentials during the lockdown. We had rounds of discussions with the suppliers and wholesalers, because in any kind of disaster, in any kind of calamity, what happens is that a number of them engage in hoarding. The prices rise up in a very exponential manner. So we had the rounds of discussion, and in a very kind of using the carrot and stick policy, we ensured that they do not do any kind of hoarding. And we also in the beginning itself, told them, because we had already heard the horror stories about panic buying in the Western countries. So we told them that you rationalize the sale of your products so that one person does not take away everything. These are some of the photographs. Government had already been providing rations, so we were distributing essential rations. Midday meal was provided to all the school children, even though the schools were shut, and also to the Anganwadis, we were providing it as take-home ration. Animal feed was equally important, so animal feed was also distributed by the administration, and we started a new supply chain, because the traditional supply chains obviously would not work during the pandemic as well as during the lockdown. So there was a new era supply chain where we directly linked up the producers to the distributors, and the district kind of acted, the district administration kind of was the facilitator. So we had new era supply chains. And we could also, this was a period when we had very vicious kind of rumors against the government, against the administration. And here we won the battle because we could aggressively use social media to counter all the remarks. For example, initially when the attendees of the Tablighi Jamaat were housed in quarantine centers and COVID care centers, there were a lot of complaints about the food. So I had this idea that we would put up photographs of the food of the COVID care centers, of the sanitation, and we aggressively went ahead with our social media, and this quelled the rumors right in the beginning. Some of the control measures. We were short of sanitizers, we were short of all masks, sanitizers. This was something people must have only talked about. So we started training up our local self-help groups. We had disabled women who we had trained up earlier, and we shifted these women and had them making masks. We teamed up with the local colleges, the local science colleges, for production of sanitizers. IEC activities. We talked to the masjid committees, because Kualpara has 60 to 70% of a minority population. We talked to the masjid committees, and we used their PA systems for broadcast of our IEC messages, which led to a greater reach of the IEC content of the government and the administration. Some of the other points, thorough screening of the passengers that were coming in, creation of a database. I can share the PPT. There wouldn't be time to go through each and every point, but the essence of it was, how did we capitalize on local resources? How could we use local resources and ensure that the outcome was the most efficacious in terms of the battle of the pandemic? So medical mattresses we did not have. We started using sponges with Rexin covers and so on. Some initiatives that we had taken up during floods, as I have mentioned, that on the day of Eid, that was 25th of May, we had devastating flash floods, and this was in areas, these floods happened in areas that traditionally had not been seeing floods, so there was immense panic. We could galvanize NDRF and SDRF, and on the first day itself, on 25th May itself, we rescued all 453 people that were marooned. Immediately, what we had done is that all the schools were already identified. We had done our homework. Identified a network of schools, and these schools were earmarked as relief camps or quarantine centers. And so immediately we could house the rescued people into these relief camps. And we made child-friendly spaces mandatory, spaces for elderly mandatory, where the older people, if they so desired, could stay separately from the rest of the population. We earmarked a particular number, a maximum number based on the social distancing. Only X number of persons could stay, and when the number crossed that mark, through buses or through boats, we would take the persons to the next relief camp. Some other innovative initiatives, the Surakshit Dada Dadi Nana Nani campaign. If you may have read about this in media, this was extensively covered by media. For the older population, for the elderly, for the women-headed population, we used our college students as volunteers, and they would call up these persons and find out, are you okay? Are you fine? Is there anything that you need? And initially, when our medical persons, when they started attending to the COVID positive or the symptomatic people, there was a lot of, there was almost a breakdown of morale, that we don't know what is going to happen to us. So for these medical practitioners, we started giving them care kits, which made them feel that, there is somebody out there who is appreciating their efforts. And through Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, we use CSR to provide coverage, life coverage of 2 lakh rupees. This was in addition to the 50 lakh rupees that government had announced. Through CSR, we provided a life cover of 2 lakh rupees, and this cover was for all kinds of deaths. It was not only COVID-related deaths, all kinds of deaths, natural deaths, artificial deaths, even suicide, because given the nature of the pandemic and the lockdown, the kind of vulnerability of these frontline workers was perceived to be higher. So through CSR, we provided life cover to all of our frontline workers. And for the incoming, this is another aspect to it. We had about 10,000 returning migrants. Those of us who had been following the Indian media, we would be aware of the migrants that were coming home in lakhs. And we had about 10,000 returning migrants. So we gave them job cards under MGNREGA, those of the migrants who were interested, and we provided them skill training as per their desire. Some other initiatives, we ensured that education continues. And since during the pandemic, we had to provide education mostly in online mode, under the hashtag Gwalpara Tech Cares initiative, we reached out to the nearby bigger towns and districts like Bongaigaon and Guwahati for people to spare their old laptops, their old, old but usable tabs and laptops, which we could use for providing lessons to these children. We were providing psychosocial counseling with assistance from UNICEF, Mission Utthan for life skills in the relief camps. So the relief camps had kind of become like a catchment area for us. And we provided training, we provided classes to the children in the relief camp along with life skills training. I will go to the developmental side of it. In absence of any other, measurable model of development, what I have done is that I am using the NITI Aayog framework of the aspirational district program. And in Gwalpara, development has been twofold. One has been in terms of systemic improvements, setting time-bound goals, focusing on the low-hanging fruits. And the other has been in terms of big bang interventions and innovations. I'll just cover some of it shortly. And you can stop me if time is running out. I'll just speak on only a few of these. Achievements in terms of basic infrastructure. This is one of the verticals of the NITI Aayog KPIs. So we have achieved 100% electrification under Saubhagya. And one thing I would really like to highlight, and which has got us accolades even internationally, is the use of green technologies in road construction. From 2000 to 2018, if we look at the road length constructed in Gwalpara, it was only 534 kilometers, which comes to an average of 29 kilometers per year. However, from 2018 to 2020, we decided to shift to green technologies in road construction. And with the use of green technologies, we could cover 530 kilometers with various green technologies like waste plastic, ICBP, geogrid, self-filled, and so on. And the trigger to this was that our main bridge on NH17, the Krishnai bridge, had broken down, and due to a Supreme Court order, we had to close down our stone quarries. So we had very limited raw aggregates for road construction available. So this was a huge achievement. And now we have procured a plastic shredder machine. We have talked to the kabariwalas. They get us their plastic waste, and we would be producing the road construction material and catering to Gwalpara and the lower Assam districts. Under Clean Gwalpara, Green Gwalpara, we have been extensively doing plantation activities, and we've already increased the forest cover from 19% to about 25%.
Ma'am, we will need to move on to Q&A.
Okay.
So I do apologize for the intrusion, but
Sure.
I must say it is incredibly impressive how you've managed to cover so much that has been done and managed to describe it in so little time and making it sound like something so easy.
What I can do is that in 2 minutes, let me just rush through all the points so that the question and answer is more comprehensive. Green technologies have been more resilient in terms of disaster. Another achievement is the e-commerce website Gwalmart, that we have done it locally, and now all the Gwalpara produce is available across the country. Under Mission Vidya Shakti, we have made one block, we have made all the illiterate women of one block completely literate. Model Anganwadi, if you can see the photos before and after, this is done not through any kind of, formal funding channel, but we have made this Anganwadi a model Anganwadi through local crowdsourcing and through local CSR. And on the left, you can see the outcomes. Enrollment has doubled as people have got their children from play schools into the government Anganwadi. There has been an increase in attendance and reduction in underweight children. STEM learning also has started in a place like Gwalpara with the help of smart classes. We are developing a network of smart classes across the district. Potion Club is another initiative. All schools of Gwalpara, we have started Potion Clubs, and this has resulted in a 100% transition rate in a district like Gwalpara. We have no dropout, and this is because of the activities of the children in these Potion Clubs. Operationalizing Potion Club, this is a very low cost model, and we have incentivized this with the best performer every month winning a trip to the Deputy Commissioner's office and a chance to interact with the DC and senior officials, and every year there is a running trophy. Community peer learning and library campaigns to inculcate reading habits among children. This is Pehi. Pehi is a mascot, and all our IC messages, we are doing it in a cartoon form, in a narrative, so that the low education sections also can benefit from these IC messages. And some other achievements. We have the first Lakshan and Kwas certified civil hospital in the entire in Assam. So yeah, and Infra Snapshot I would like to talk about. This is again an app that we developed with CSR from Webcom. And with this app, this is a 24/7 convergence app, and anybody who has this app can lodge any kind of complaint on any of our schemes, any of our infrastructure related points, manpower related points. And this has helped us understand, which departments are working better and what are the areas that need our intervention. This is it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And that was very enlightening and insightful. We do have some questions, and I'll start with the question from Mrs. Nilima Bhagavati. Was any measure taken to counsel and give emotional and academic support to elderly people and learners of school and colleges during the lockdown and existing pandemic in your district?
Yes, ma'am. We had done this with the help of UNICEF. We had done this for our school children with the help of UNICEF. We had given psychosocial counseling training to 1,500 teachers of the Gwalpara district, and over telephone, they were talking to students, and they reached out to about 15,000 students, and they provided psychosocial counseling. At the same time, in the relief camps, we were giving them life skills training, like draw your dream, act your dream, because we understood that the children were the ones bearing the brunt of stress in the pandemic. So these were the initiatives that we've been taking.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I'll take two more questions. So one is from Tom Boyd. Thank you for your presentation. I'm pleased to hear of the relative low mortality rate in your district. The question is, how has the pandemic most affected the main long-term goals of your administration as an aspirational district?
I would say that it has been, the impact has been in terms of delay, because whatever we would have achieved maybe 4 or 5 months before got delayed. So the first impact has been in terms of delay, and the second has been in terms of increased costing, because for an aspirational district like Gwalpara, our resources are limited, and within these resources we now have to apportion funds for providing masks, for sanitizers, and so on. So I would say in terms of cost and in terms of time of completion.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that. What was the greatest challenge you faced in this task? This is a question from our president, Mrs. Nira Borkakoti.
Yes, ma'am. I've given this question a lot of thought, and I would say the first challenge has been in terms of keeping our manpower motivated, because Bihu has gone by, Eid has gone by, Puja has gone by, and nobody has gone home. And all our officers here, they do not have their families here. Their families are in Guwahati, and keeping all of them motivated, and it is relentless. There has been no break in the whole process. Even in elections, know that on so and so date the poll gets over, the counting gets over, but here it has been endless and there is no end in sight. So I would say keeping our manpower motivated, keeping the team active has been the greatest challenge.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your presentation. You did mention that you would be sharing your presentation. So what I would suggest is if you email it to our email address, which is assamforumgb@gmail.com. We would be very grateful. We would then publish it on via Twitter and on our website. The other thing I would mention is an observation that among the many things you said, obviously that is probably the tip of the iceberg of what you will have been doing. It was impressive to hear this thinking out of the box idea of using the speakers in the mosques as a medium of making announcements. That was really very innovative, and that was one thing I picked up on. Thank you, ma'am. And I understand you did mention you might need to briefly leave and then come back. Please don't worry if you need to do that. As before, you will come into the waiting room, and as soon as I see you, I'll let you back in. Or you are welcome to stay on as well, more than welcome.
Sure, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Right, so we will now move on to the next order of business, which is our next presentation. I'd like to introduce Dr. Romin Talukdar, who is a medical practitioner and a principal of the Medical College, now has been appointed the principal of Medical College of Borpeta Medical College. I do have to say that in the meantime, our chief guest, the Member of Parliament, Mr. Kamakatasa, has joined us. I will also further mention that Dr. Talukdar does have a personal situation for which he will need to leave quickly, which is why I hope it's all right for everyone to let Dr. Talukdar take the dais and present about COVID-19 and public responsibility. Prior to that, I just wanted to give a brief introduction, a further introduction to Dr. Talukdar. He's a senior healthcare professional and carries more than 31 years of professional medical experience. Dr. Talukdar was born and raised in Guwahati, where he finished both his MBBS and MD from the Guwahati Medical College, Assam. Post-education, he spent most of his professional career dedicated to his alma mater as a professor of radiology and administrator. He then served as the medical superintendent of Guwahati Medical College Hospital for more than 10 years. And Dr. Talukdar also served as a territorial army officer, retiring as a major in 2012. He's a great believer in social service and in providing free healthcare to the poor and needy. And he has just finished his appointment working as professor of radiology at the Lakhimpur Medical College. And as I mentioned earlier, is now taking over as principal of Borpeta Medical College. Sir, it is our honor to have you. Welcome to the conference, and the stage is all yours. If you're muted, please unmute yourself. We are reading.
Thank you for my introduction. And I think everyone can hear me.
Yes, sir, we can.
Yeah. So before, my topic is to discuss about the responsibility of public in terms of management of spread of COVID-19, which is pandemic all over the world. Before that, I just want to briefly speak about the steps being adopted for the COVID-19 cases detected in our Assam. The government of Assam, Health Department, and already our Barnalimang has nicely narrated about the administrative skill and responsibilities being adopted. So once the disease became pandemic, and the Assam government promptly reacted into it, from initiating many testing centers in the areas initially where the disease took place. Later on, many centers, hundreds centers, testing centers were being created. The schools were being taken. The many areas being arranged for the testing the cases. Then accordingly, after testing the positive cases, those which are not medically admissible are arranged for quarantine. So many quarantine facilities, many places are arranged for quarantine, many schools, many colleges, and many areas being arranged for quarantine of the patient which are not having any sort of symptom. And those cases which were having symptom requiring admission arranged first initially Guwahati Medical College from February. It was arranged many ICUs being created because it was being thought that the ICU care will have to be promptly arranged for the patients suffering from the COVID cases. So many hospitals and many treatment facilities being arranged, and accordingly the patients were being accommodated, and lots of cases were being detected, and without any problem in Assam, those were placed in quarantine, and they were arranged for admission in the hospitals or COVID care centers being arranged accordingly. And regarding the awareness for the public, the media are being arranged, and the Assam government and the arrange for publications of the leaflets, then the distribution of the leaflets among the public, then the school centers, then media, TV, papers, all were arranged, and the hoardings were being arranged so that people can know about the disease and what sort of responsibilities they should adopt. Then according to the guidelines, all are being arranged. There are ICMR guidelines for Government of India, and accordingly the testing facilities, quarantine facilities, treatment facilities. And the responsibilities which are being fixed to the public are, it is all over the world. It's not only in Assam or it's not only in India, like starting from the wearing mask, then maintaining the distance, then hand rub, washing hands frequently, not touching eyes, cleaning the hands, and see whatever the facilities were being arranged accordingly, those are being, people were being addressed. And when the disease took turn, the many cases were detected in Assam. Then even the Assam government arranged for lockdown. So see, this is the COVID-19 cases, and the steps being adopted for prevention are being described in many places. There is no point of describing point was. So I want to say the people should react according to the guidelines and instructions being placed for the COVID-19 cases. But it's very surprising. Many areas, they even do not wear masks. They're moving without wearing masks. The hotels, the people are entering the hotel without masks. The public places being, people are roaming in the public places, bazaar, purchasing vegetables without masks. So see, this is really very surprising. And after having this sort of experiences, the people are not reacting or not following the instructions being placed. Lockdown are being placed for prevention and control of the disease. But once the lockdown is relaxed, then people will gather without wearing masks. Lots of bikes, lots of vehicles, and people without masks are roaming around. So it is really very surprising to note. And in many places, I've already told that small canteens, hotels, people are gathering without masks, and this has led to spreading of disease. Maybe according to my opinion, I feel so. Then purchasing some vegetables or purchasing anything, fruits from outside, then people are being taught how to wash and how to keep clean and keep it outside before arranging for cooking. Then how to cook and boil the fishes and meats. So people are not following these instructions. Even now in many places, they are not following this instruction. It's very surprising. And in the meanwhile, the steps being adopted by the police forces, already Bornali Ma'am has told district administration about the role of district administration, then health officials, the doctors, nurses, and ASA workers, and all the social worker, they were working for prevention of the disease, and they are even now working. So these are the steps, and I would like to say one point that what are the steps being narrated for prevention of the disease of COVID-19 are generally being adopted. It's not like the COVID, these are the steps: wearing masks, washing hands, washing vegetables, washing foods purchasing from outside, and kept clean is not only for COVID-19 cases. It is a general steps being adopted by all the public, and the COVID-19 cases are even though decreasing in many areas, but it is not yet being eradicated or completed from all the places. So definitely it will continue. So public should know, public should learn, and public should maintain whatever the instructions being placed accordingly. And lastly, I want to thanks for inviting me for this discussion. And already I'm having some personal problem because of my father's sickness. So hopefully I'll not be able to continue. And if anyone want to ask me some question, I'm ready to reply to it.
Right. I have to say the chat has been a bit quiet, but I would like to bring a particular question that came in from Dr. Nilmoni Sekdar. It's a fairly basic question, but I guess it will help to inform everyone accurately. The 19 in COVID-19, what does it stand for?
Pardon?
The 19 in COVID-19. Is it 2000 or something else?
Yeah, yes, it is.
Not,
okay. Wonderful.
Because
19.
the virus was found in December 2019. So it's
Certainly,
coronavirus infectious disease 19.
Yes, 2019, yeah.
Certainly. Thank you for a very insightful presentation, Dr. Talukdar. We understand you do need to leave, so we wish you a good day and thank you for spending this time with us.
Thank you.
And we now promptly move on to our chief guest, Mr. Kamakhya Prasad Tasa, Member of Parliament of Rajya Sabha of the Indian Parliament. I do apologize for any issues that you had faced in connecting to our conference today, sir. But hopefully you can hear us now, sir. All right. I think you may be muted because we can't hear you. We can see you definitely.
Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Perfect. We can hear you very well now. So we of course
Yes.
as a member of parliament, you don't need any special introduction. Nevertheless, I did mention to the audience that you would be gracing this occasion with your presence. So I'd like to hand it over to you, sir, for a few words, please. I would like to request you to please say a few words on this occasion as our chief guest. Thank you.
Can I speak in Assamese?
Definitely, sir.
Yes. Namaskar. Assam Forum Great Britainor সকলো সদস্য যিসকলে আজি চাই আছে সকলোকে মই ধন্যবাদ জ্ঞাপন কৰিছো মোৰ মনটো বাৰে বাৰে আপোনালোকৰ ওচৰলৈ গৈ আছে ঋতুপূৰ্ণ বউকো মই ধন্যবাদ জনাম আপোনাকো ধন্যবাদ জনাম যে আমি মোক গ্ৰেট ব্ৰিটেইনৰ কথা বৰকে মনত পৰে you are very lucky that you are in Great Britain because it is my favorite country. I am very happy that you have invited me as a chief guest in this meeting. Are you hearing me, sir?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yes.
We can hear you.
Yes. You are, I have also heard Bernali ma'am and Mr. Raman Talukdar. And I am very happy that you are so serious about Assam Forum Great Britain, which is a unique organization of the world, I think, and you have joined this. Neem is saying that nice to hear you, Mr. Tasa. Thanks for your support. ধন্যবাদ মই আপোনালোকে গ্ৰেট ব্ৰিটেইনত থাকিও অসমৰ কথা চিন্তা কৰিছে বৰ ভাল লগা কথা আৰু আপোনালোকে দেখিছে যে আমি বেলেগ কাউন্ট্ৰিক নহয় গ্ৰেট ব্ৰিটেইনত থকা মানুহবিলাক এটা মডেল হিচাপে আমি গ্ৰহণ কৰো আপোনালোকে মই মাজতে জয়ন্ত বিশ্ব শৰ্মাৰ লগত জয়ন্ত দাৰ লগত মোৰ কথা হৈছে আপোনালোকৰ বহু কেইজন মানুহৰ লগত কথা হৈ থাকে মেছেজৰ যোগেদিও এই পৰিস্থিতিত আপোনালোকে ধৈৰ্য ধৰি পেলাই আপোনালোকে আছে অসমৰ কথা ইতিমধ্যে বৰ্ণালী মেডামে কৈছে আৰু ৰমেন তালুকদাৰে কৈছে কোভিড সময়ত এটা বেয়া সময় আমি পাৰ কৰিছো কিন্তু ডিউ টু some special measures taken by Government of India. Our Prime Minister have taken, and in Assam also, especially Chief Minister Sarbanand Sonowal and Himanta Biswa Sharma have taken. We have passed a very bad situation, but casualty is very low. COVID period we have faced, you have seen in whole world, we have seen গোটেই পৃথিৱীত আমি দেখিছো যে এনেকুৱা এটা পৰিৱেশ কেতিয়াও হোৱা নাছিল এনেকুৱা ভয়ংকৰ পৰিৱেশ কেতিয়াও নাই ভাৰত বন্ধ হয় অসম বন্ধ হয় কিন্তু পৃথিৱী বন্ধ হোৱা প্ৰথম সিচুৱেশ্যন আমি নিশ্চয়ভাৱে দেখিছো এইটো সবৰে মনত থাকিব এই সিচুৱেশ্যনটো মোকাবিলা কৰিবৰ কাৰণে অসম চৰকাৰে বহুতখিনি ব্যৱস্থা কৰিছে আমি ভাৰত চৰকাৰে আপোনালোকে জানে গ্ৰেট ব্ৰিটেনত যদি হাৰ্ডলি 9 to 10 crore মানুহ আছে আমাৰ এটা ডিস্ট্ৰিক্টত ইণ্ডিয়াৰ এটা ডিস্ট্ৰিক্টতে তাতকে বেছি মানুহ আছে সৰি ষ্টেটত ইউপিত 20 কোটিতকৈ বেছি মানুহ আছে এই বিশাল 130 কোটি দেশক সম্ভালি লোৱাটো কিমান টান হ'ব পাৰে আপোনালোকে দেখিছে লকডাউন পোষ্ট লকডাউন প্ৰি লকডাউন এই পিৰিয়ড কেইটাত বহুত সেনসিটিভ ইস্যু বহুত কষ্টত মানুহ পাৰ কৰিছে we have provided lots of what you will help to the people government in the meantime government have also provided with free rice and everything আপোনালোকে ভাবিব নোৱাৰে এনেকুৱা এটা মানুহ 80 কোটি মানুহ 80 to 82 crore মানুহ যেতিয়া বিলো পভাৰ্টি লেভেলৰ মানুহ আছে অসমতো তেনেকুৱা অৱস্থাত আছে আমি কি ফেস কৰিছো তাৰ কাৰণে গভৰ্ণমেণ্টে যিবিলাক ব্যৱস্থা গ্ৰহণ কৰিলে সাপোজ আমি কেতিয়াও আগতে স্যানিটেশন কথাটো নাহো আমি হ্যান্ড ওয়াশিংৰ কথাটো আহো শিকাই স্কুলত কিন্তু আমি প্ৰ্যাকটিক্যালি ব্যৱহাৰ নকৰিছো মাস্কৰ কথাটো আমি ভাবিবই পৰা নাছিল এতিয়া এইবিলাক সব ইন্ট্ৰোডিউস লাহে লাহে হৈছে আকৌ মই এতিয়া দেখিছো এটা বেয়া সিচুৱেশন আহিছে we have seen that people are not wearing masks and they are saying that covid is that one section of people is always giving this message that covid is nothing else but it is a rumor এনেকুৱা এটা কথা ক'ব বিচাৰে কিন্তু latest আমি যিবিলাক ঘটনা দেখিছো এই ঘটনাত আমি were very serious about this issues আপোনালোকে যিসকলে গ্ৰেট ব্ৰিটেনৰ আছে তেওঁলোকে এই কথাবিলাক অকমান চিন্তা চৰ্চা কৰিব লাগে কেনেকৈ তাৰ পৰা আপোনালোকে এটা মেছেজ পঠাব লাগে ইণ্ডিয়া টু আসাম যে মানুহখিনি কেনেকৈ থাকিব লাগে তাৰ পৰা আপোনালোকে সোশ্যাল মিডিয়া বা অন্যান্য মাধ্যমৰ যোগেদি এইবিলাক কাম কৰা বৰ দৰকাৰ আসাম ফ্ৰম গ্ৰেট ব্ৰিটেনে এই কথাবিলাক অলপ ক'ব লাগে কোভিডৰ সম্পৰ্কত মই কোভিডৰ সম্পৰ্কত এইকাৰণে নকওঁ যে আপোনালোকে নিজৰ ষ্টেটখনৰ নিজৰ ৰাজ্যখনত আপডেট লৈ আছে আজিলৈকে আমাৰ কিমান কেজুৱেলিটি হৈছে কিমান মানুহ হস্পিটেলত আছে আপোনালোকে জানে কিন্তু বৰ ভাল কথা বৰ সুন্দৰ কথা যে অসমত কেজুৱেলিটিৰ সংখ্যা কমিছে আৰু কোভিড পজিটিভ হোৱাৰ সংখ্যাও কমিছে ইয়াৰ মানুহ সচেতন হোৱাৰ কাৰণে এইবিলাক ঘটনা হৈছে আৰু ৰেষ্ট্ৰিকশন যেহেতু আছে if you come to Assam from other part of India or world you have to test this rapid antigen test covid test কৰিব লাগিব তাৰপিছত আপুনি এন্ট্ৰি কৰিব পাৰে তাৰ লগে লগে বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ ৰেষ্ট্ৰিকশন আছে আমি হস্পিটেলত যাওঁতে কোভিড টেষ্ট কৰিব লাগে মন্দিৰত যাওঁতে কোভিড টেষ্ট কৰিব লাগে এইখিনি ঠিক আছে এইখিনি আপোনালোকে দেখিছে বুজিছে মই তাত নকওঁ মোৰ এটা ৰিকুৱেষ্ট আছে I have a request to Assam from Great Britain যিসকলে তাত বহিছে মই সবকে মই জিতেন দাক দেখিছো মই সকলোকে দেখিছো আমি very happy I'm very that I'm invited as a chief guest আপোনালোকে অসমক আমি we are trying our government is trying to give best effort to the people of Assam for new entrepreneur to new education students তেওঁলোকক কিবা পৰামৰ্শ আপোনালোকে দিব পাৰে নেকি গ্ৰেট ব্ৰিটেন আসাম ফ্ৰমৰ পৰা এটা এটা চিন্তা কৰিব লাগে যিসকলে তাত আছে আপোনালোকে ইমান দূৰত গৈ তাত এষ্টাব্লিছ কৰিছে তাত আপোনালোকে সাৰ্ভাইভ কৰিছে তাত আপোনালোকে এষ্টাব্লিছ কৰিছে তাত আপোনালোকে নাম কমাইছে আৰু আফটাৰ অল I thank you that you are remembering your state every time everywhere আপোনালোকে অসমক গ্লোৰিফাই কৰিবৰ কাৰণে চেষ্টা কৰিছে আপোনালোকে নাতি পুতি ল'ৰা ছোৱালী সকলোকে আপোনালোকে ভাষাটোৰ কাৰণে ব্যৱস্থা কৰিছে এই অসমখনৰ ডেভেলপমেন্টৰ কাৰণে আপোনালোকৰ অৱদানটো আমি আশা কৰিম by writing article by writing a letter to government by any means by giving messages through social media or any media print media or by organizing meeting in some আপোনালোকে যদি আহিব পাৰে অসমলৈ আহি পেলাই হলো তেওঁলোকক এনকাৰেজ কৰাটো মই বিচাৰিম মই জয়ন্ত পিছত শৰ্মা ডাঙৰীয়াক ধন্যবাদ জনাম আজি কেইদিনমান আগতে মই তেওঁক IITত পাইছো he is selected as a visitor lecturer in IIT আৰু তেওঁ বহুত স্কুলত গৈ পেলাই কাম কৰি আছে আপোনালোকক মই আৰু বহুতে কাম কৰি আছে মই তেওঁলোকৰ কথা মোৰ ইনফৰমেশ্যন নাই মই I request you all who are hearing me please come to Assam you are regularly visiting Assam and visit some educational institution so that the new generation will be encouraged by you by talking to you and other things by corresponding you আপোনালোকে কি কৰে এটা নতুন কথা চিন্তা কৰিব লাগে আসাম ফ্ৰম গ্ৰেট ব্ৰিটেনে মোৰ বহুত ৰিকুৱেষ্ট আমি গ্ৰেট ব্ৰিটেনক দেখা নাপাম বহুতে দেখা নাপাব জীৱন কালত কিন্তু আপোনালোকৰ সান্নিধ্য পাব পাৰে you are a unique you have got unique personality because মই আমেৰিকাত থকা বা অন্যান্য জেগাত থকা বিলাকতকৈ মই গ্ৰেট ব্ৰিটেনত থকা মানুহখিনিক বেছি মহত্বপূৰ্ণ দিওঁ কাৰণ এইটো প্লেচটো এটা বেলেগ ধৰণৰ ইণ্টেলেকচুৱেল প্লেচ আজি ৰাতিপুৱা মই আমাৰ স্পিকাৰ হিতেন্দ্ৰনাথ গোস্বামী ডাঙৰীয়াৰ লগত মই কথা পাতিছো তেওঁ ছোৱালীক গ্ৰেট ইউকেত ছোৱালীক এডমিশ্যন দিছে মই কৈছো তেওঁ মোক কৈছে যে মই আমেৰিকাত পালো মই নিদিলো মই ছিংগাপুৰত বিচাৰিছিলে মই নিদিলো কিন্তু মই মোৰ ছোৱালীক লণ্ডনত পঢ়াইছো ইমান ভাল আপোনালোকে যিটো পৰিৱেশ তৈয়াৰ কৰিছে মই বহুত ভাল পাইছো আৰু you are so senior you are so learned person you are so kind that you are always joining with this Assam Forum Great Britain ভূপেন হাজৰিকাৰ আপোনালোকে তাত জন্ম জয়ন্তী পাতে আপোনালোকে একত্ৰিত হয় মই ভাবো এটা লাৰ্জাৰ অৰ্গেনাইজেশ্যন বনাই আপোনালোকে অসমৰ যিটো এফৰ্ট দিছে বানপানী কেনেকৈ ৰখাব বানপানীতো ৰখাব নোৱাৰে পোষ্ট বানপানী পিৰিয়ডত কি কৰা উচিত পোষ্ট ফ্লাড সিচুৱেশ্যন আৰু চাব সৰু সৰু কথাত আমি ব্যস্ত হৈ যাওঁ we are now fighting with Nagaland regarding our issues that border issue and আমি বহুত সৰু হৈ গৈছো আচলতে ৰিজনেলিজমটো বহুত বাঢ়ি গ'ল ইমান ৰিজনেল হৈ গ'লো আমি ইমান ৰিজনেলিজম হৈ গ'লো এটা ডিষ্ট্ৰিক্টৰ পৰা এটা ডিষ্ট্ৰিক্টত লৰাক আমি সহ্য কৰিব নোৱাৰা হলো আমি চান্দা আমি ইজি মানিত বহুত গুচি গ'লো এক্সট্ৰিমিজম গৈছে লাহে লাহে এক্সট্ৰিমিজম টেৰৰিজম গৈছে কিন্তু ইজি মানি চান্দা বৰংগনি এইবিলাকত আছো নিজে ইনোভেটিভ আইডিয়াৰ কথা আমি পাহৰি গৈছো আৰু উই দি পলিটিচিয়ানছ অলৱেজ diverting these issues it is not good I am also politics or politicians who are responsible to do some things better for the society they are also not doing good officers I have seen you see this IS officer Bornali Deka I am not saying Bornali Deka she is also participating but officers have also lost their credibility they are also I don't know why they are doing like that many officers not all but the politicians have lost the credibility in my mind ami populist policy besi jao all the politicians I have seen so give us some new innovative ideas so we can make Assam a good state because the population of Assam is not very large it is only 3.20 crore 3 crore 20 lakhs so what is in million I don't know you convert it to million you are speaking about million pound but 3 কোটি 20 লাখ মানুহক এটা ভাল মডেল ষ্টেটলৈ ৰূপান্তৰ কৰিবৰ কাৰণে আপোনালোকৰ নিচিনা মানুহৰ সহায় লাগে আপোনালোকে তাৰ পৰা এটা কথা কৈ দিলে আমি তাত 10টা কথা তাক ব্যাখ্যা কৰিম উইল এন্টাৰপ্ৰেনিয়ৰ গতিকে মোৰ বৰ অনুৰোধ আই হেভ এ ৰিকুৱেষ্ট মোৰ বহুত অনুৰোধ আসাম ফ্ৰম গ্ৰেট ব্ৰিটেন is a very good organization is an ideal organization through that organization you transfer all the ideas we may take or not that is depend upon us but you can give this idea I am looking Nilamani Sigdarda you are also responding me and you are
Can you hear us, Tassa sir? There appears to be an audio disruption. Sir, are you there? Okay, it does seem like we may have briefly lost, we may have lost the connection with Mr. Tassa. I also can't see him at the moment. So let's hope he can reconnect and come back in. Otherwise, we will have to move on. Do bear with me while I quickly check. Thank you.
I can see him now, Rick. I think.
Okay, it must be the. Yes.
I think he's muted.
Yes, yes, yes. মই বহুত ভাল মই হেক কৰিছো মই ইমান technically I'm not equipped by I'm sitting in my car and you see I am in now in border area of Assam and Bhutan. It is called Hatigor. Is a far from 150 kilometers from Mongoldoi. It is very far place. আপোনালোকে আহিলে কেতিয়াবা ভাল পাব. There is no bridge in this Kusi river and we have to যি নহওক আপোনালোকে মই ঋতুপৰ্ণা বৌ আপোনাক ধন্যবাদ জনাইছো Great Britainৰ all the members who are participating and who are not members like Roman Talukdar, Bonali Deka, who are participated in this your GB meeting. I thanks all of you and I hope situation will be good and মোৰ second time যাতে লণ্ডন যাবলৈ আপোনালোকে সুবিধাটো দিয়ে তাকে মই আশা কৰিলো বহুত ভাল পাম আপোনালোকৰ লগত তাত এসাজ ভাত খাবলৈ মই ভাল পাম লগত কথা পাতিবলৈ ভাল পাম আৰু অসমবাসীয়ে আপোনালোকৰ পৰা এটা পজিটিভ এসপেক্ট আশা কৰো ধন্যবাদ
Asa sir, thank you so much for an insightful speech. We are very chuffed. We are very delighted that that Great Britain is your favorite country. And I think if we were to put what you said into context, it would be that you can take a person out of Assam, but you can't take Assam out of the person. And I think that sums up the essence of what you were trying to say, sir. Your point about putting on advice, suggestions, assistance, etc., to people such as young aspiring students and entrepreneurs in Assam is very well noted. And I'm sure many of us will have their individual ideas. John Tada already is a lecturer, is a guest lecturer in IIT Guwahati. There will be other people who are already doing things. And this is one area where the AFGB definitely will encourage people to come in and contribute more to the state of Assam. So thank you very much for that. And I also would like to acknowledge that this is not the first time that you are supporting us. You have supported us in the past as well. You have come and graced our past conferences with your presence. So we see you as someone who has continuously supported us over a large period of time, which is why thank you so much, sir. We will move on to the next item on the agenda. And sir, you're more than welcome to stay on, or if you wish to leave, we thank you for your time, but you're more than welcome to stay on, sir. Thank you. Bear with me, everyone, as we move to the next item on the agenda. Just a quick technical check here. Right, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Professor Jayanto Mollabora, who is a practitioner here in the United Kingdom. Professor Bora was born in Assam and emigrated to Scotland in 1996 when he was 7 years of age, which is where he studied before qualifying in medicine in 1982 from the University of Edinburgh. He trained as urology surgical registrar in Dundee and then became a senior registrar at St. Bart's and Royal London Hospitals. He was awarded his medical doctorate due to his research on the effect of the glutamine nutritional supplementation of protein metabolic in health volunteers and major surgery patients. And that was at the University of Edinburgh in 1995. Throughout his career, Dr. Borua has been very illustrious and has worked in numerous institutions, and he remains passionate about education and is deeply committed towards driving the agenda for excellence in his field, especially in the specialty of urology in London and also as well as in the NHS. He has served as the Director of Medical Education there as well. So although he has retired from full-time clinical practice, he retired last year, especially because of the extra demands on the NHS, which is our National Health Service, arising from the COVID-19 pandemic, he has returned to work on a part-time basis to offer his assistance and expertise, and has played a supportive call role at his hospital trust. Additionally, he retains a keen interest in his roots, in his Assamese roots and in his cultural roots, going back to his native land. He is also an ex-president of the London Bihu Committee and is keenly interested in music, cooking, and gardening. Professor Borua, I hope I quoted you in the right light. If I misquoted you in anything, do forgive me. But the stage is all yours. If you would please unmute yourself. We're ready when you are.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay, good. Rick, thank you very much for that lovely introduction. Madam President and members of the Assam Forum Committee, if I could thank you, first of all, for inviting me to speak at the 9th annual conference of the Assam Forum of Great Britain. This is a great honor and privilege, and I'm indeed humbled to be given this opportunity to speak in the presence of such distinguished guests. I should say at the outset that I'm not really an expert on COVID-19, but Dr. Borkakoti has invited me, as I'm currently a practicing doctor, as you've said, and I've been involved in the care of patients in the UK's NHS, which has, of course, been severely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. I would also like to thank my son, Dr. Ranjan Borua, who has helped me in the research and preparation of this presentation, and who also is currently directly involved in the care of patients suffering from COVID. Let me just move on. So if I could start at the beginning, going back to what we can speculate was the start of the pandemic, there is some degree of uncertainty and controversy as to when the pandemic actually started. What's definitely known is that the World Health Organization was formally notified by China of a cluster of people affected in Wuhan by a new severe respiratory illness caused by the coronavirus. And this was at the end of December 2019. There's some doubt as to the exact point because the local Wuhan authorities' transparency in releasing all facts, especially as to when the first few cases were diagnosed, and therefore it'd be difficult to pinpoint the exact date. But it is suspected that COVID cases were beginning to present to the local hospitals around November or December at Wuhan City, which is the epicenter of the original epidemic. In those wonderful pre-pandemic days of free travel and unrestricted flights, it didn't take long for the virus to travel abroad, and the European countries most badly affected initially in early 2020 were, of course, Italy and Spain. And there was a lag period of a few weeks before the UK began to see its first cases, and a slightly longer lag period before its peak. So that could have given the UK some vital time to prepare. The next slide shows the overall timeline from the very first cases when the Chinese authorities reported the presence of the coronavirus in early December, and this timeline takes us right through to the nearly to the present time.
Sorry, sir. Sorry to interrupt there, sir. Are you sharing your presentation? Because we can't see it at the moment. Perhaps you could. No, if you could look at the share screen option. If you have difficulty, I could share it from my screen. If
let me just try again.
Okay.
Okay. See it now?
No. Yeah, something's coming.
Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
You can.
Yes, we can. You probably need to make it full screen.
Okay, let's just see. Is that better?
Yes, it's visible.
It's visible. I think
I
we
can
should go
see
with
your
that.
timeline slide, and of course, the next slide is in a smaller view. I think that should work.
All right, let me just see if I can. I think it's the wrong way around. I meant to. Okay, can you still see? Or
yes, we can go with this.
We can go with this.
all right. How can I? It's the wrong way around. The wrong screen. The choice to decision. Okay, if I just so I was talking about the timeline. I'm sorry about that technical glitch. We were leading on to the time in the UK close to the present time when the UK figures for COVID has passed a staggering figure of around 1 million cases having been diagnosed. So let me briefly go on about the signs of the COVID. It's likely to have originated from animals. The genetic imprint identified in the lab indicates that it originated from and probably mutated from similar coronaviruses in the bat. There's a possible role in the transmission of COVID from the Far East, the so-called wet markets, where live and exotic animals are sold for human consumption. The likely spillover event where the virus was introduced to humans most probably occurred in late 2019. And by then, it was clear that the disease was highly contagious. The virus is in the same family of viruses that are commonly known to us. That's the flu virus and the common cold virus. And the common symptoms of the disease are now widely known, which are high fever, persistent cough, severe tiredness, and breathing difficulties, as well as a loss of sense of smell and taste. Many people, though, have mild symptoms and can even be symptom-free. Some go on to develop the acute respiratory distress syndrome, or ARDS, and that's thought to be related to an overstimulation of the body's immune system, which attacks the body's own organs, leading to multi-organ failure and septic shock. Even in those patients who recover from serious illness, there is the possibility of long-term damage, and that is now being recognized more commonly as long COVID. The UK's response to the COVID pandemic has been led, of course, by the government, and that's headed by the current Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. The government is advised by a Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies, or SAGE. The government has had to adopt a multi-pronged approach to tackling the crisis. It has stated that its main objective has been to protect the public by protecting the capacity of the National Health Service and meeting the extraordinary health needs during the emergency. It has also taken steps to introduce new parliamentary legislation, the Health Protection Regulations Coronavirus Act of 2020, which was created specifically to tackle the pandemic. And England's Public Health Authority has taken steps to encourage societal behavioral change. The government has sought to mitigate the effect of the virus on private business and on the general economy. There's been a clear immediate economic cost to the nation, and this will undoubtedly be carried into the foreseeable future. The government has also had to go on a massive procurement drive to obtain PPE. It's had to ensure that ventilators and intensive care units would have sufficient capacity to cope with a massive influx of patients, having seen how such capacity could be readily overwhelmed in countries such as Italy and Spain, and we've seen similar scenes in New York State across the Atlantic. The SAGE committee was influenced in its advice to government by mathematical modelling, which was published initially by the Imperial College of London. And on SAGE's advice, the government created 5 alert levels, which I've shown on the left side of this slide. And these levels we moved through from level 1, which was the halcyon days when there was no COVID present in the UK, through to level 4, where the COVID epidemic was noted to be in the general circulation with high rates of transmission. And that implied the need for social distancing measures and restrictions. And then on to level 5, where there was material risk that the NHS would be completely overwhelmed. And leading on from that, there were the alert levels, and that's shown on this, the part of the slide on the right-hand side. The government published a 3-tier system to guide society's response to the pandemic, from tier 1, where there's a medium level of risk, to tier 3, where restrictions are quite intrusive. Public Health England published many educational campaigns for the public, the most well-known being the mantra, hands, face, and space, to wash hands for at least 20 seconds after any contact, covering faces with masks, and the 2-meter space distance for people. There were significant political considerations for the government. It's received support, but it's also faced opposition, whilst at the same time it has had distractions, such as the need to continue with the Brexit negotiations of Britain leaving the European Union. There was a different stance and perspective on how to handle the pandemic from the UK's devolved nations of Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, for example, in their issuing of travel restrictions and guidelines. This was somewhat haphazard and uncoordinated in the first lockdown, and could be quite confusing for UK travellers travelling to and from abroad. The government's main parliamentary opposition was led by the Labour Party, which has been critical of the government in terms of the speed of its response to the pandemic, its coordination, and its logistics capabilities, and also its slow procurement of the PPE that was needed in the health service and in the general population. The track and trace system for detecting and isolating people in the public was slow to develop, and that's been criticised. The government, however, has robustly defended its performance, not surprisingly, and they've said that this has been in the context of having had to deliver and respond to a massive health and economic crisis, which has been uncharted and unprecedented. The pandemic has had a huge impact on the UK's economy. The current Chancellor Rishi Sunak, announced a government furlough scheme, which would cover 80% of the salaries of workers, which companies were obliged to retain. And this has been targeted at the private sector, where these companies' businesses were temporarily shut down. The scheme's aim was to avoid mass unemployment, which in turn would contribute to further social distress. It clearly has had an immediate beneficial social and economic impact, but at a massive financial cost to the nation. It's led to the UK having a huge public sector borrowing of £394 billion this year, and that is 19% of the gross domestic product. And that's in the context of an economy that has plummeted by 11.3%. And that's the largest fall for this country in 300 years, which puts this in context. So the government and society will have to make difficult choices, very likely with combinations of higher taxes and lower public spending. We've seen the introduction of many new phrases here and throughout the world, such as social bubble, social distancing. Social distancing and wearing of masks has been difficult for many people in this country, being unused to such facial coverings. There's been real hardships with requirements to stay within social and family bubbles and workplace and school bubbles. New networking practices have emerged with huge growth in the use of online conferencing, like the one we're involved in just now. There's been an impact in the care of elderly in nursing care homes, and there has been very significant levels of mortality from COVID in these homes, which has led to further restrictions for families in their visiting of loved ones. The country has come to realize the severe mental health impact of the disease. And for the average family, it's been difficult to manage meeting even other members who live apart, and meeting friends has been equally difficult. At some of the most heartrending, or alternatively most joyous times of our lives, there's been distress too, because of the limits on attendance, such as for funerals and weddings. There has, of course, been a surge in unemployment, rising over 2.5 million because of the business failures. And I'll mention some specifics in a minute. Charities which have looked after the needy in our society, the needy sectors of our society, have found it very difficult to raise money, and their activities have been severely curtailed. Of course, different sections of society have seen the risks differently, and younger age groups in particular, who are less at risk from the serious aspects of the disease, have found it very frustrating with restrictions in their movements and socializing. Key industries, and I've just shown a selection of some that I've thought of first, have been affected. We know that the travel industry and the airline industry has been virtually grounded internationally. The UK likewise has not been spared, and its major carrier, British Airways, has laid off thousands of workers. The retail industry and the high streets have seen a huge drop in activity, and major brand names in the high street have closed. The hotel and hospitality industry and the West End of London, famous for its many shows like the Phantom of the Opera, has also been severely affected. The NHS has, of course, had to adapt to this incredible crisis. Emergency departments have seen a huge fall in non-COVID attendances in the first wave. There's been a greater use of emergency telephone 111 helpline service. Many specialty clinics and hospitals and our primary care GPs have adapted also and adjusted to using video consultation. With a focus on treating COVID, not surprisingly, other patient groups have suffered with significant delays in their treatments. The government, in preparation for the first wave, converted many large exhibition centres, such as the massive Excel Centre in East London, into makeshift Nightingale wards with the assistance of the Army. And they would have had the capacity to ventilate and treat intensively thousands of patients. However, thankfully, many of these didn't need to be used. There's been staff illness, etc., and morbidity for many of us. And also, some of us have lost colleagues who have died from the disease, exposed through patient contact. A whole generation of junior doctors and nurses have seen a loss of their standard education opportunities, but on the plus side, they've had a unique exposure to a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. the private sector has been recruited into helping the NHS. It normally provides 10% of the elective work, but it has helped in collaborating with the NHS to provide for non-COVID patients. The NHS has also started the massive COVID testing and screening program. And also the NHS Track and Trace app, which is a version of other apps that have been used throughout the country, has had many false starts and has been implemented. Still not perfect, but it is beginning to work. The public has supported the NHS in its endeavours, and there was a period of public recognition with regular Thursday evening clap for carers. The COVID pandemic has also had a very significant impact on the nation's education system, the schools and universities. The secondary school exams were cancelled and replaced with a computer calculated marking system or an algorithm. There was a huge public outcry as certain sections of students were seen to be disadvantaged by this. The government backtracked and replaced the marks with local teacher assessments. Less controversial move, which has been seen throughout the world and in the UK, is the development of blended learning systems, mixing traditional face-to-face teaching with a large amount of online teaching material being placed online. The country, along with other countries in Europe, has seen a fall in cases around May to June. And then from August to September, with the relaxation of rules, there was a steady rise and ultimately the peaking of the second wave around November. The government and society's response has been different in this second wave. Some lessons indeed have been learned. The furlough scheme has been extended to March next year. The government initially tried a strategy of regional lockdowns to minimize the impact on society and on the economy using the tier system, which I mentioned before. However, this failed to deliver in terms of suppressing the rise in COVID cases, admissions to hospital, and indeed even deaths. It's led to a second national lockdown for a period of 4 weeks or so. We're still in it and just coming to the end of it. The medical management of the condition, however, seems to have improved with fewer mortality. We still have substantial numbers of mortality, but it's less than the first wave. The PPE availability has greatly improved, and there's been social changes with much greater acceptance of COVID-19 as being a serious threat to the health of the public. However, there has been a small but very vocal resistance movement, both political and social. The scientific community has been under huge pressure, and it's been to try and find a way out for humanity from this health crisis. The WHO, after a faltering start and some missteps, have been issuing guidance with more evidence and knowledge. SAGE in the UK have interpreted the WHO guidance and similarly have followed a path of making some mistakes and maybe some errors in judgment, but have grown in confidence with time. Initially, it was felt that the viral spread could be controlled by hand washing and hygiene methods alone. However, evidence emerged then of airborne spread of the COVID virus, and consequently the guidance evolved to take that into account. There have been multiple clinical trials of drugs in the early days, such as remdesivir, which President Trump was treated with famously, an antiviral drug which is designed to tackle the Ebola viral infection. Steroid drugs such as dexamethasone, vitamin D supplementation, and there was also a controversy about the use of the anti-malarial hydroxychloroquine, which was thought to have some antiviral effect. Steroids do appear to show a reduction in mortality in those seriously ill patients who require supplementary oxygen, and there's been a number of other experimental developments. ITU particularly has evolved in its care of patients with less invasive ventilation and more continuous positive airways pressure oxygen support, and also proning of patients. The greatest hope, however, has been in the development of vaccines against COVID-19, and we've all heard the wonderful news in the past month that there has been some really promising breakthroughs. Pfizer, BioNTech have published the results of their vaccine clinical trials showing a very high 90% effectiveness in protecting against COVID. Then the company Moderna mentioned that their vaccine could offer protection in their population at-risk population of 94%. Oxford University, in collaboration with AstraZeneca, their vaccine protects perhaps between 60 to 90%, depending on an adjusted dose regime. And they're still working on that. However, the logistics of storing and administering millions, if not billions of doses of these vaccines to populations in this country and around the world would be a massive task. And this slide simply summarizes the different types of vaccines I've just mentioned. And in addition, there is Russia's Sputnik 5 vaccine, which is in trials. And I know that China and India have also been developing their own local vaccines, but the clinical trial data has not yet been published. I'm coming towards the end of the talk now, and overall, however, I just wanted to say that the UK's performance has been quite disappointing in tackling the pandemic, and that's in comparison to the rest of Europe, as you can see in this graph. It's indeed the third worst performance behind Belgium and Spain, and significantly worse than the European average in terms of deaths caused by COVID. So why has the UK, which is the 5th richest country in the world, performed in a very mediocre way? These are some possibilities. It may have been disbelief and rather late acceptance and recognition of the severity of the threat. Maybe the government and society as a whole felt that it was a disease on the far side of the world, like SARS and MERS, and like those, would simply pass us by. This country has had no recent experience of such viral pandemics, the last one being the Spanish flu in 1918. In spite of being a wealthy country, there was an insufficient investment in manufacturing and infrastructure for PPE. And in the early part of the year, maybe the leadership was indeed distracted by Brexit. Perhaps the response
Sir, have we lost you, or are you there? Professor Borua, can you hear us? Professor Borua? Right, we will wait for Professor Borua to come back in. And while we do, it's good to see that there is a good number of questions that have lined up, especially when the UK perspective has been presented. And of course, the perspective from parts of Assam have been presented by our chief guest as well as Mrs. Decker. As soon as Professor Borua comes in, I will raise the questions that have been posted on the chat. In the meantime, I do ask us all to please bear with us while we get to sort things out.
Why?
Polite request to everyone to please keep themselves muted in order to ensure smooth conducting of proceedings. I am looking out to see if Professor Borua needs any assistance. I believe he has just disconnected and will try and reconnect. Please bear with us. Once again, we seem to have lost one of our speakers, Professor Borua, who was presenting. And I am in contact with Professor Borwa. He is trying to reconnect, so I ask you all to please bear with us while we try and bring him back online. I see Professor Borwa on his way joining in. We should have him here back shortly. Professor Borwa, can you hear us? Professor Borwa, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm very sorry about that. We had some technical problems, so I got. I think our internet went down for some reason. Hopefully,
Not at all. I guess this is the new norm of life now, given the COVID-19 situation. There are some new phenomena like technical glitches disconnecting us from time to time.
I hope the audience had most of the talk.
Yeah, no, we did hear you. We lost you about a minute back, and yeah, so we're glad to have you back. I think you had a video for us, did you, sir?
Well, let me just show you that if I can.
Sure. If you would share your screen again.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'll just share the screen. Let's just say. Let me just go back.
And we will move on to the Q&A right after.
Yeah. Okay.
While you set that up, sir, I just wanted to say to everyone, the AFGB has a new Twitter account, which is Assam Forum GB. So any of you Twitter buffs out there, if you look at Assam Forum GB, all one word, you will see us there. We welcome you to contribute to our Twitter feed, comment on it, ask questions, and mention us as well. Thank you. I think Professor Borwa is ready. We can see your screen, sir.
Can you see this?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is just the final slide I had. Can you see it?
Yes, sir, we can.
You can, yes. I was just going to say that I think the UK's performance is likely to be the same as internationally, which will be the impact of the virus the vaccines program, and that's more or less what I was going to say. But I was also going to say that on a final personal level, I've really missed my annual trips to Assam, and I really look forward very much to my first flight. Going to Guwahati. And if I could just share this quick video clip to viewers about what I'm anticipating.
Hello, this is your pilot speaking. My name is Adrian Oberhensley. I'm working from home today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And oh dear, we hope we never come to that. So thank you very much for that. I will move on to Q&A very quickly.
Yes.
There are quite a few questions that have come up, so I'm going to pick on them at random. And I do apologize in advance if I haven't been able to take anyone's question and accommodate it in time. Prior to that, I do want to let you know that in terms of our agenda, of course, some of you may have noticed that we did skip the break in between, and that is just to make up for the time. Obviously, this is our first online conference, so there were odd glitches, and obviously when people connect from all over the world, there are issues, there can be numerous things that can go wrong, and yet here we are. This has gone so well so far. So I will start with the first question, which is from our president, Mrs. Dira Bokakoti. How reliable are the mathematical models?
Well, the difficulty is they're not widely shared, and that goes back to what I've referred to, that perhaps the advice that the government was given by SAGE is based on these mathematical models, and they're narrow band. And so if they were widely shared and they were published and peer reviewed, then I think probably the public and politicians would have greater confidence. So I think they are coming from, in terms of reliability, they're coming from very institution and academic unit with impeccable credentials. But what we don't know, and they're just as apt to make mistakes as anyone else. So it is possible that there are some faults with the mathematical model.
Certainly, thank you very much for that. The next question is from Mr. Bidhan Das. What are the benefits of the tier system in UK, and what's the exit strategy to get out of them? Which is tied in with the question of how do vaccinations help the economy?
The tier systems, the benefits are that instead of having a national lockdown, the idea was, the thinking behind the tier system is that if there are areas or parts of the country with a low transmission rate, that there's a low risk of the local hospitals being overwhelmed. And if that was the case, then it would allow the local economy to continue. And it would prevent this unemployment, the loss of businesses in the local area. And so instead of having a national lockdown with rules for everybody exactly the same, irrespective of local geographical reality of the COVID pandemic, it was thought that would be the way forward. That would be the advantage and the theoretical benefit. But unfortunately, in spite of that thinking, we realized that there was a rise in cases across the UK. Probably in a small island like this, or a small country like this, there's a lot of travel and intermixing of the populace. And so maybe that's why it didn't work. And it led to the national lockdown, the second wave.
Thank you so much, Professor Arora. There are a number of questions around vaccines, so I'm going to combine them to make it easy. So there is a question from Debolin Das. Is there a concern that the vaccine would have long-term effects on health, given that the government are in a rush to have it out to people without extensive tests being carried out, which I would combine with the fact, with the other question from Mrs. Geeta Borua. Has the vaccine been tried on ethnic minority, as the mortality rate is more in this group of people?
The answer to the first question, I think the pure fact that it's been done quickly in itself doesn't really fill me with dread, simply because I think technology has moved on. Yes, historically, vaccines used to take about 10 years to try and test. But a large part of that was development of it. So the traditional vaccines against smallpox, diphtheria, polio, they were done using different techniques of a bygone era. So the current modern laboratory-based RNA, DNA, all this kind of technology-based identification of the core parts of the anatomy of the viral particle and identifying antibodies or treatments against it has speeded up. And remember that there was a massive input financially into the vaccine program, which hasn't happened with former vaccines. So the timescale was short, of course, but the fact that the timescale was short doesn't mean that it's necessarily risk itself. But yes, I share some concerns that the trials are not yet massive. So typical vaccine trials in the past have been with hundreds of thousands of people. And yes, there are risks that we may find even after the 100,000th patient or 1 millionth patient has been vaccinated. That is true for all vaccines, not just the actual core active part of the vaccine, but also the carriers that are coming with it. So some people may have reactions to it. Sorry, the second question was?
Also, the second question was whether the vaccine's been tested particularly on ethnic minority people, as the mortality rate is more in that group.
I think there are definitely trials going on in India and in Brazil. So I think, and in South Africa as well. So I think, yes, the question I would answer, yes, there have been trials going on, but I don't know if that has been all combined in the overall figures of 90 to 95% for specifically for the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines. I couldn't tell.
Right. Two more questions, Professor Bora. One from Mr. Torun Sodri asking how would the interferon beta inhale formulation work? It's a very specific niche question, but if you could throw any light on that.
Because that's not something that we would use as a preventive. What is his context? Why is he asking that question? If I could ask a question back.
All right, so I will leave it to Mr. Sodri to please follow up on the chat and elaborate on the question while I move on to the next question, which is from Dr. Rohini Borua. What could be the possible reasons for the second wave coming, and will the second wave be expected to come in every country state, which is followed on by saying, are there any evidences of post-COVID effects in pregnancy or post-pregnancy? I think they are two different questions, actually.
Yes, I think the second wave, I think, is a phenomenon which has resulted from relaxation of the rules, and it resulted from a balance between the need to restart or re-kick the economy, to fight the society fatigue with restrictions, and so the restrictions were eased, and that led to a mingling. There were also widespread change in UK, particularly. There were the sort of movements of the population, student population, and others, and that led to the virus spreading again, and that in turn is the root cause of the second wave. I think that phenomenon has occurred already. I can say positively to the second part of that question, it has occurred in other countries. We've seen that in many other countries where they've successfully clamped down with very restrictive rules and regulations on the first wave, and then after the relaxation, you've seen a second wave. I can't answer about the pregnancy question. I'm not really an expert.
Sure. That is brilliant. I think we are bang on the clock at 5:30 p.m. In fact, 5:31 p.m. in India, which is 12:01 p.m. in Britain. Thank you so much, Professor Borua. This has been very insightful, especially given that we have heard about the COVID situation in Assam, and now we are in a position to compare and contrast and learn from the position in Britain as well. We are coming on to the wrapping up part of the conference. And I have just briefly shared our Twitter page for everyone to see. So I would like to, before I hand over, proceed with the next item on the agenda, I just wanted to say that's the look of our Twitter page. There will be tweets coming up in time, and this could also be a medium to make quick, short comments and have very brief discussions, because that too is a mode of communicating and propagating ideas. I will stop sharing there, and I would now like to hand over to Dr. Jayanta Biswa-Sharma, our Vice Chairman Emeritus, in order to inviting him to sum up the conference. Dr. Harma, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Rick. Madam President, Neera Baidu, and the members of the forum and all the participants, I think you will agree with me that the last 2 hours has been really, really engaging and very interesting. And all the three presentations I found very insightful. And it tells me one thing, that we tend to think that COVID, for that matter, a pandemic or an epidemic, is a health matter, a medical matter. In fact, we can now see that this pandemic hasn't been just a health matter. In fact, it has been a social matter, it has been a political matter. Health has always been a political issue, always has been a social issue. But with COVID pandemic, it has come to the fore that it is actually, dimensions of a health issue is actually, multifaceted, it's multidimensional. And what is good about this presentation, I am a member of this forum, so obviously I would be praising, but this praise is coming from my real, it has been an honest praise, that this is a presentation, these three presentations, we have heard diverse views. We have heard from an administrator, from a developing country, from a remote corner of province of Assam. Then we have heard from an experienced scientist and practicing doctor from United Kingdom. We have heard from Dr. Roman Talukdar, principal of Barpeta Medical College. He has been actually in the forefront of fighting COVID during the initial few months when it erupted in India, beginning March, April. We have heard from him as well. So if you actually listen to these three presentations, if you try to put them into context, I find some interesting analogy. You see, COVID doesn't stop your life. In Gwalpara, we have seen Bornali Deka has been tackling COVID in middle of two waves of floods. Here, the current government is fighting COVID with Brexit. You can, in a way, you can see that normal life doesn't stop. But yes, COVID did bring many of our activities to a standstill. All the devastation has come really to the fore from Professor Borua's presentation. In last 300 years, we had deficit, which is unprecedented in last 300 years, and the mental health impact on children, impact on economy. I think what he has told us the story, not of the United Kingdom, but actually of every single country. And his presentation has been a scientific one as well. He blended how COVID started, starting with start of COVID, ending with our exit strategy, that is with the vaccine, how we are probably going to come out of this disaster. So I think that was a very insightful presentation, and our our Assamese, our participant from Assam would get the perspective of how COVID is being dealt with slightly different it hasn't been a standard. There is not a standard way of dealing with COVID. So you will be benefited, I hope, with perspective of Professor Borua. Similarly, coming back to Madam Bornali Deka's presentation, I think what she did with limited resources, challenges she did say the challenges has been to keep up the morale of the team. But that is universal. That is everywhere is the case. You have to keep up the morale of the team. But I think her main challenge probably was the misinformation, and how with innovative intervention using the religious organizations public broadcast system, then engaging other social media, how they kind of try to tackle that misinformation has been a real eye-opener for me. And similarly, like maintaining the supply chain, putting supplier directly in touch with the consumer. She actually elaborated quite a few innovative interventions, which probably we need to ponder again. I would urge you to kind of ponder her presentations all over again. Those will be put on our website, so we have to digest, we have to read, and we have to view our own opinion and form our own perspective. Coming back to Dr. Talukdar's presentation, I think he brought up one very interesting challenges that he faced, which is that public not adhering to the advices. Why that is the case? Again, that gives me food for thought. And this is, again, I want to reassure Dr. Talukdar that this hasn't been the phenomenon just restricted to India or Assam. It is an universal phenomenon. I think there is a COVID fatigue now have set in as well, but that is not, probably that is now. But why even in the beginning, people were not listening to the, public health advices. In America, we can see in how people are behaving. I think there are many dimensions in this epidemic has kind of brought to the fore. And probably next decade, next several years, we will be dissecting this epidemic. We'll try to learn from it, and in our effort how to prevent such a disaster when it strikes again, because it would strike again. We know these zoonotic diseases and these epidemics. These are the results of our modern way of living, the globalizations, the travel and so on. So it is not going to be the last epidemic or pandemic. So with these few words, I kind of given my perspective on this tree presentation. But let me quickly focus on our MP Kamakhya Tasa as well. I think I know he's a COVID survivor. He gone through this himself. He didn't say it himself, but I know he had COVID. He was admitted in Jorhat Medical College, and he has actually, came out victorious through this, through his own personal battle. And his encouraging words, his perspective that, how we the member of the diaspora living in the UK, how we can contribute, etc., are very heartfelt. His very heartfelt appeal, I think, and I thank him for that. And I think you would agree we had a wonderful presentation, although it is virtual. I think this presentation, this conference, 9th AFGB conference, has been equally successful like our last eight conferences. With these few words, I would like to thank all the speakers and the participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Harma. Very encouraging words there. And indeed, I'm sure you and I are not alone in feeling enthused about having conducted a conference, our first ever conference online, and having seen it to come to success so well. We do say Assam is the land of Lahe Lahe. We are known for lagging behind in time, etc. But I have to say, our original plan time to end the conference was 12:10 p.m. UK. It is 12:10 now, so we will probably be only 15 or 20 minutes after, which I have to say, given it's our first technical conference, given we did have some technical glitches, is perhaps good. It's a good thing. I think the whole executive committee deserves a pat on the back. Before I move on to the final item of the agenda, where I would invite our Vice President, Mr. Diganta Bhushan Das, to offer the vote of thanks, I just wanted to introduce the Executive Committee panel to everybody. So we have Dr. Jitendrulal Borkakoti, who is our Chairman Emeritus. Of course, Dr. Borkakoti didn't speak today, but he has been with us with this mission throughout, right from the start, being one of the founding members. He was chairman before stepping back to let a new committee govern, but at the same time, staying in the background to provide inspiration. So he's our chairman emeritus. Dr. Jayanta Mishra Harma, of course, who spoke just now, is our vice president emeritus. I did say vice chairman emeritus, I correct myself. He's also been a strong force behind the movement. Dr. Harma is a consultant microbiologist in Northern Bray Healthcare here, but is engaged in a lot of work back in Assam. Mrs. Neera Borkakoti is our president. Mrs. Borkakoti spoke in the beginning to welcome all of us and has been very instrumental as well. Mrs. Rituparna Bhattacharya Harma is our general secretary and one of the busiest people in the Execom, and has been very instrumental in arranging the, coordinating the communications and with regard to the invites, etc. Mr. Diganta Bhushan Das is our vice president, as I mentioned. Pori Hoikia is our publicity person, publicity member of the executive committee, and she's been instrumental in working behind the scenes. We have standing members of the executive committee, Mr. Torun Sodhuri and Mr. Salim Borgmia. We thank you both for your efforts as well. Finally, before I hand over the stage to Digonto, last but not least, well, in the end, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Nirankush Rik Das. I am the treasurer, serving treasurer of the AFGB, and I have been your host today. Now, without much further ado, I would like to hand it over to our Vice President, to Mr. Diganta Bhushan Das, to propose a vote of thanks and sum up the conference. Diganta, the stage is yours. Please unmute yourself.
Yes, excellent. Thanks, Rick. Yes, it's a pleasure really to propose a vote of thanks for the conference, our first online conference, and to sum up and actually to say a few words at the end. And Dr. Sharma, he made my task so much easy because he gave such an excellent summary. So I don't need to say much. So I'm just going to keep my vote of thanks brief. I know some of the speakers have actually left. Nevertheless, I think we need to appreciate what they have done for the conference, as well as all the participants, all of you, because without the participants, we can't have a conference. So thanks to everybody. Yes, so just a formal few words. Just wanted on behalf of AFGV and of course on my behalf, extend a hearty vote of thanks to all the speakers. Mr. Tasa, I have heard him talking before, and as usual, he was very passionate today in whatever he said, so it was good. So thanks to him for gracing the occasion, and then he gave a very nice assessment of what's happening in terms of COVID in Assam, and we definitely look forward to having him with us again in the future and working with him on issues of Assam. Must mention our deep, sincere appreciation as well for Mrs. Bonali Deka, DC of Gwalpara district, for her remarks and of course sharing the experience. We keep hearing some stories in UK, but to actually see what's happening in Gwalpara, such a remote place, as Dr. Sharma was saying, was really impressive. And we do wish all the best to her and her team in tackling COVID in Gwalpara district. And if we can do anything from the UK, from AFGV, it would be really good. It would be a real pleasure. Dr. Roman Talukdar, he mentioned public responsibility in Assam in terms of COVID. So we are grateful to him as well for his remarks and enlightening presentation. Sorry to hear that his father is unwell and he had to go a bit early, and wish him all the best and his family. But at the moment, our sincere thanks to Dr. Talukdar for spending time with us and giving his thoughts and ideas. Dr. Janta Molla Borua, I enjoyed his presentation a lot. I'm interested in COVID as well as a researcher. So I wish to express our gratitude to Dr. Borua for sharing his insightful thoughts and experience on UK's response to COVID. And we look forward to hearing further on what happens beyond today. And last but not least, as I was saying, all the participants, thanks a lot for coming and actually attending the conference. I know how busy we are, incredibly busy, and it's a weekend Saturday. So thank you a lot for attending the conference, and we look forward to your participation in the future. And of course, an event like this cannot happen over a night, and the executive committee has been planning this for a few months. So I'm glad that it has gone smoothly. And so that has been a real pleasure, really, to see that everything has gone well at the end, except a few minor glitches, I think, but they were expected, Eric. And it adds to the fun as well. So thanks a lot. Thank you all for attending and for your participation.
Thank you, Digonto. And that brings us nicely to a close. We are just past 5:45 p.m. in India, and likewise, it's just gone past 12:15. It's in fact 12:18 p.m. in the UK. Thank you, everyone. And we do expect your feedback. the AFGB will be writing to all participants seeking feedback. We do promise we do not send too many communications in a year. However, if you would like to be taken off the list, then of course, I have to say, do please write to us and we will do that. But we hope you will stay with us because your feedback will help us improve our conferences in future. This has been our first conference, but there's more coming, so watch this space. Thank you, everyone. And with that note, we close this conference today. Thank you and goodbye.